You are currently looking at a spreadsheet that contains a list of first place scores across a variety of Osu beat maps, but what makes it so interesting is that it contains the oldest snipeable number 1s in the entire game. But when the Shadow of Dark released this spreadsheet on June 2nd, 2021, everything changed. Scores that have remained at the top for over a decade were dethroned by a generation of players that used this spreadsheet as a bounty board. And with that came one of Osu's most ambitious projects. This is a story of dedication, rivalries, and even cheating. This is the story of when the decade-old scores finally fell. Before we get into the project itself, we need to do a quick crash course. For those completely new, Osu is a rhythm game where players click and slide circles to the beat of music using a wide variety of maps. After completing a map, you will earn a score based on your performance. Each map has a leaderboard detailing the highest scores. To snipe a score means to take the number 1 spot from someone from the leaderboard. This project focused on 3 sniping methods, each one requiring you to full combo, or FC for short. The most common sniping strategy was out-acking. If you press a note on beat, it will give you a perfect 300. Too early or too late will give you either a 100 or 50 depending on how off you were, diminishing your accuracy. You can snipe a score by simply getting better accuracy with the same multiplier. If a score had no 100s or 50s, you had to either outmod them by using a mod combination with a higher multiplier, or have the same multiplier and spin faster on any spinners. Let's talk more about the former. In outmodding, you can have lower accuracy but still snipe due to the multiplier being higher. There are 4 difficulty increasing mods that can increase your multiplier. Hidden will make the circles disappear and force the players to eyeball the timing based on the music. Hard Rock increases the approach rate, which is how long a circle appears on the screen, and overall difficulty, how accurate you have to be rewarded a 300. Hard Rock also makes the circle smaller. Double Time, contrary to the name, speeds up the map 150%. The final mod is Flashlight, which limits the visible area of the screen to your cursor. These mods can be added together to create even bigger multipliers. If a score already had all 4 difficulty increasing mods and had a perfect SS, the only remaining option was to outspin the original player. The spinner is a special object which gives you more score the faster you spin. If you match a player's accuracy and score multiplier, you can beat them by spinning faster than them. Any score that was a 4 mod SS with maxed out spinners was considered unsnipeable and excluded from the sheet. That is everything you need to know. Don't worry if you didn't get everything, the concepts will come back up throughout the video. Now let's talk about the project. The earliest snipeable number 1s in Osu were a couple of scores hit in 2010, with one single score from 2009. That score was on Love Colored Master Spark hit by Snowball on November 10th, 2009. It was easily outmodded by the Shadow of Dark. This was the same case for most of the 2010 and 2011 scores, so it was looking pretty easy so far. Then came the last 2010 map. Shonen A was a map that consisted of many long streams, testing the player's stamina and tapping ability. The number 1 score was hit on December 30th, 2010 by a player named rrtyui, who dropped only 7 100s. He used both Hidden and Flashlight, which are the 2 vision limiting mods. It relies much more heavily on memorization. Shonen A's low approach rate, or AR for short, made Hidden a nightmare. AR refers to how fast the approach circle moves, but for Hidden, it's how fast it appears and disappears. With low AR, the circles are invisible for longer periods of time, making jumps at certain areas literally invisible. It was especially hard on streams, where the closely packed circles in rapid succession could barely be seen as you float through them. It was a brutal test of memory and flashlight reading for over 2 minutes straight. People have gotten good scores over time that could have potentially sniped the score. There was -GN's flashlight only SS, but the score multiplier wasn't high enough. The Shadow of Dark grinded the score and got a Hidden Flashlight S rank with 99.89% accuracy. Unfortunately, he broke on a slider, which is when you aren't able to successfully follow it. Though his accuracy was better, the combo break from the slider lessened his max combo, thus not sniping. Shadow quit grinding the score and moved on. But as the last snipeable 2010 score, Shonen A was back on the chopping block. Shadow was ready to get back to work. However, on August 25th, 2021, something would happen that no one expected. A player that didn't have anything to do with the project would snipe the score. Who was this? Fop was an up-and-coming flashlight player who started playing the year prior. They didn't even know about the old Snipes project, they just wanted to get number ones. So how did they snipe? Did they use better mods? No, they used the same ones. Did they get better accuracy? No, the opposite actually, getting 2 more 100s. So did they outspin? No, spinning doesn't compensate enough from accuracy lost. So how? Remember how I said if you get better accuracy with the same mods you snipe the score? Well, that was partially a lie. Your combo multiplier exponentially gives you more score as you play, so if you get an inaccurate hit with a low combo, it will hurt less than a higher one. But accuracy doesn't care when it happens, it treats it all the same. That's why sometimes someone snipes an old score while having lower accuracy. They played bad early on, but they kept good accuracy for the rest. This is called score v1ing. Kinda broken, but it's how the game works. Narita Taishin would get his 100s in the ending sections, which are considered the hardest parts of the map. Fop would get all their 100s early, being able to get 100% accuracy on the ending part, successfully obtaining a higher score. After this, they learned about it being the oldest snipeable score in the game at the time. They then decided to join their project moving into the 2011 scores. Moving into the next year, there were 203 snipeable number 1s hit in 2011. They only had so much manpower among themselves. They needed to speed up progress one way or another. They decided to start a Discord server to make it more of a community thing. The server made it much easier to track, organize, and discuss snipes. This dedicated space significantly boosted the project's popularity by making it more easily discoverable, with many high-level players joining in. One of those people was Arnold, who was the best Peruvian Osu player and in the top 10. He was very skilled at low AR with Hidden, a skill that fit old Maps' lower approach rates. He decided to challenge himself by sniping some Hidden flashlight scores through Hidden Double Time, which had the same score multiplier but was much harder mechanically. He would successfully snipe a handful, being the highest ranked player to participate in the project. Well, at least willingly. Sometimes top players accidentally sniped an old score, indirectly helping the project. The final 2011 score would be sniped by Nick Skate, who was actually responsible for some of the 2011 and 2012 scores, making him the first player to have both an old score and snipe one. At this point, exactly 50 people had contributed to at least one snipe. For the most part, they were pretty easy snipes. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for 2012 moving onwards, where it will become exponentially more difficult. There were 474 scores to snipe in 2012. With this, the scores hit a higher difficulty level. Most 2011 scores remained unsniped because they were flashlight scores that used a gamma exploit. This exploit allowed players to see farther than what flashlight intends, allowing for unlegit scores to appear at the top. 2012, however, marked the release of performance points, or PP for short. PP was created as a ranking metric that is supposed to reflect the skill of a play through a numerical value. Every single play in Osu has a PP value attached to it. In the earlier versions, PP was calculated through a combination of your rank on a map's leaderboard and the map's popularity. There was also a leaderboard for who has farmed the most PP overall. This sparked a high level of competitiveness on the leaderboards through 2012, with many players putting in thousands of tries for single scores, as well as fierce battles on the most popular maps. The most impressive of the bunch would make it to the old Snipe spreadsheet. The one at the top? White Wolf. White Wolf, or now known as WubWoofWolf, is widely considered the greatest old map player of all time. He started playing the game in 2008, when old maps were the only thing around. The term old map refers to a map made in the earlier days of Osu, where there were fewer regulations on what could be ranked and had a limited map editor. Linear patterns, small circle sizes, low approach rates, and tapping patterns that didn't follow the map were commonplace in old maps. Sometimes the circles would be straight up placed off beat, forcing players to eyeball the timing based on the circle animation. Mastering the skills to play old maps was an art in itself. WubWoofWolf was the undisputed master of old maps. He had hit rank 1 in 2009 and 2011, already being considered an experienced veteran by 2012. His understanding of the old map style and his overall skill filled him to the brim with first place ranks on leaderboards. In just a handful of tries, he would destroy leaderboards with double time full combos, matching or beating the accuracy of other players without. As in, for what the best players could do, WubWoofWolf could do it with double time. He was rank 1 on the global leaderboard for the majority of 2012, further proving his dominance. Many old WubWoofWolf scores appeared on the sheet, many with the highest star rating, the game's measure of a map's difficulty, among the number ones for 2012. To further understand this, we need to talk about WubWoofWolf's Big Six. There were 6 number 1s from 2012 that had at least a 6-star rating. All 6 of them were hit by WubWoofWolf. They range from 6-star to nearly 7-star, which is high for old maps. They required a diverse amount of skills to snipe, some being triplet bursts, low AR hidden reading, and complex tapping patterns, otherwise known as finger control. But accuracy was the common skill set that made these scores very impressive. Old map patterns were sometimes so ridiculous that you would have to go into the editor to understand the rhythm. WubWoofWolf would somehow intuitively understand these rhythms, allowing him to dominate modern players in accuracy. Oftentimes, he stood alone as either the single double time FC or by far the most accurate one for over a decade. Beating these scores would be quite tricky, as out-acting WubWoofWolf on old maps is something not a lot of players can do. It would take an old map specialist to beat WubWoofWolf in his own game, but there was no one out there who could rival WubWoofWolf's old map ability. Well, all but one person. Meet Chicken 10. Chicken 10 is a Russian player who started in 2016 and immediately found an interest in number 1 farming. He initially played easy and normal diffs, but later pivoted towards old maps in general. Over the next few years, he improved his skills on old maps, playing for number 1s. He played anything that was old map related. It didn't matter if it was small circle size aim, awkward finger control, or hard to read low approach rate. If it was old, he would try to get number 1. He spent years grinding, climbing from easy diffs to hard, then to insane, and finally to the hardest old maps. After 6 years and 3,000 hours of number 1 farming, he was known as one of the best old map players in the game, having a well-rounded skill set which specialized in the conventions of old maps. With this skill set, he set his eyes toward the king of old maps himself, WubWoofWolf. He was Chicken 10's biggest inspiration, but now with the skills to challenge him, he decided to go for the ultimate grind, snipe WubWoofWolf scores. It's inevitable in any competition, someone walks so another can run. WubWoofWolf has walked and waited. Chicken 10 was the guy that needed to run. After a couple of months, Chicken 10 would snipe 5 of the big 6, the one outlier being Final Test in Toho, being outmodded by Kuromi with lower AC. Regardless, Chicken 10 would play the map anyways to snipe Kuromi. The lower star WubWoofWolf scores would also be briefly sniped by Chicken 10 and other players. On August 21st, 2022, the last 2012 WubWoofWolf score would be sniped on Star Rise, being outmodded by Lizwera. The legend scores from a decade ago were finally surpassed, but this was only the beginning. While beating the WubWoofWolf in 2012 was an achievement, it will be even harder to beat the version of him 1 year later, and even harder 2 years later. Each year will present an even more daunting task, a task we will return to later. For now, we need to divert our attention to a different legend, someone that didn't have as many rank 1s left, rrtyui. rrtyui is a longtime legend of Osu from the early 2010s. He had done everything from the highest PP score in the game, to Osu World Cup wins, to hitting rank 1. He has hit countless scores ahead of his time like the first image material S rank and a remote control double time FC. His most popular score, however, was his Big Black SS, which is the most viewed replay in Osu history. He was voted the single best player in all of Osu for 2013 and 2014, being marginally ahead of everyone else. He would eventually quit in 2015, leaving behind a trail of scores everyone needed to catch up to. His prolonged inactivity and his tendency to deliberately miss on scores left him with few number 1s. His remaining top scores were a popular target for top players over the years, who often went on sniping campaigns to try to outdo his old scores. By the time the Old Snipes project started, the last couple of rrtyui's number 1s appeared on the spreadsheet. Many of rrtyui's number 1s would be caught in the crossfire of Old Snipes, where he would be out-acted and outmodded by current players. By August 2022, he would have only one first place rank left, with some players questioning if they should even snipe it. I mean, he was a legend and it would be nice if he had just one. But the bigger problem was actually sniping the score. There was a reason this score was his last standing number 1. Silver Temple is a map made in 2012 with the top diff including multiple flow aim sections which look simple until you turn on Hidden and Flashlight. The circles were spaced just far enough that Flashlight made them invisible, forcing blind jumps combined with Hidden. These flow aim sections happen twice in the map, one halfway through and a second time in the end. On December 2nd, 2012, just 7 hours after the map was ranked, rrtyui was able to successfully hit both flow aim sections with Hidden and Flashlight, FCing with just 5 100s. This is considered one of rrtyui's best Flashlight scores, being a unique display of his high-level mechanics and reading he was capable of in 2012. But as a snipeable 2012 score, it was now up to the old Snipes group to beat it. Multiple players would do some attempts on it, but none were successful. The flow aim sections were just too uncomfortable to read. Some considered it the hardest score to snipe from 2012. Others thought it would be the last 2012 score standing. No one wanted to take on the challenge just yet. That was until December 18th, 2022. A €100 bounty would be placed on Silver Temple, giving a money incentive for sniping rrtyui's last number 1. This attracted multiple old Snipes players who immediately started playing for the snipe. The two major candidates to snipe the score would be Pie Flavors and MB Masher, who were both highly skilled Flashlight players. MB Masher was rank 1 on memory on the Osu Skills website, while Pie Flavors had hundreds of number 1s from his high accuracy Flashlight play. They both had different approaches. Pie Flavors would go for out-act with the same mods, while MB Masher did out-mod with Hidden Hard Rock Flashlight. Both ways had their own advantage. While Hidden Flashlight was easier to play, it would be harder to get good accuracy as a few bad mistaps would ruin the entire score. Meanwhile, Hidden Hard Rock Flashlight would be more mechanically demanding. But the additional score multiplier meant that MB Masher only needed an FC with decent accuracy for the snipe. This map wasn't much more difficult with Hard Rock anyways, as the circles on the flow aim part were already nearly invisible without it. Both with their different strategies, it was now about who would do it first. Who would be the one to snipe the last rrtyui number 1? Right off the bat, Pie Flavors would secure a 3-miss play. His accuracy, only 1/100. He was immediately thought of as the top candidate to snipe the score. He would later on get a 1 miss with 4 100s and 150. It was clear that he could comfortably get good enough accuracy to snipe the score. It was just about FCing. Right when he was getting in the groove though, he would be called in for a tournament match and had to pause his progress. Meanwhile, MB Masher was making her own progress. She would start off by getting a 3-miss with mediocre accuracy. She was close, she just needed one good run. Over dozens of runs, she would get closer and closer to FCing the map, also improving her accuracy on the way. After dozens of more tries, she would get into the section again, this time with more accuracy. Was this the one? On December 18th, 2022, MB Masher would get the first Hidden Hard Rock Flashlight FC on Silver Temple, sniping the final rrtyui number 1. It was now over. Some felt disappointed, but no amount of snipes would ever take down rrtyui's legacy. His former number 1s are only a small part of his biggest achievements, and no one can ever take those away from him. But now with the hardest scores taken down, the old Snipes group was ready to finish out the rest of the 2012 scores. Due to the larger volume of scores compared to 2011, many more players pitched into the Snipes. Sungha would do the most with 86, thus making him the most prolific sniper for 2011 and 2012 combined. On March 21st, 2023, over a year after starting the 2012 scores, the final score would be sniped on Shinsekai by Pie Flavors. This was a monumental moment, and they were all very excited to finish 2012, but now they had to shift into an even greater challenge, 2013. When everyone's eyes finally set on 2013, there were over 500 scores that they had to snipe, and with that they were much harder than last year's. Along with WubWoofWolf were many legends in their prime, like the Lewa, Rucker, and Dungeon. They had many number 1 scores, including some SSs that would be very mechanically challenging to outmod. They needed reinforcements, a top player even. There was Chicken 10, but he was only interested in sniping WubWoofWolf scores. They needed someone else. If any top player was interested in the project, they would breeze through many of the scores. It would be a piece of cake for them to out-act 10-year-old scores or outmod SSs through their sheer mechanical skill. But top players are more interested in pushing skill cap, either gaining ranks or preparing for tournaments. Sniping old scores in their comfort zone was not within that scope. Should any one of them take an interest, however, it would be a major win for the project, and eventually, one would join. This is the Popoff of Matthew. Matthew is a top player known for playing 3-mod. The term 3-mod refers to using Hidden, Hard Rock, and Double Time, which is the most common combination of the 3 mods. This combo often buffs a map's AR to 11, the maximum amount. This is a skill that requires high reaction and reading speed, a skill Matthew had mastered, making him one of the few players who could comfortably sight read it. In 2019, he would peak in the top 100, being one of the best at TV size farm with 3-mod. But he was far from just a 3-mod one-trick. He was also an amazing tournament player. He would obtain many badges, not only winning solo tournaments but also big team tournaments where he would play and keep up with the top of the top. He would win tournaments all over the spectrum, like a solo AR11 tournament and an All Map World Cup. While he dominated in tournament play, he would also #1 farm by playing maps with 3-mod. To further understand his true skills, we need to talk about overall difficulty, or OD for short. With 3-mod, OD is maxed at 11.11, creating a tight 26.66 millisecond window for a perfect hit. On 60 FPS, you only have around 1.5 frames to hit a circle on time. Mastering accuracy with high OD is a rare skill. For Matthew, however, this was child's play. He would easily hit high accuracy FCs and SSs on maps with the max AR and OD. These scores earned him many #1 spots on leaderboards. His mechanical skill and accuracy, even when sight reading, were unmatched. This skill got him to the top 5 in total #1 scores, being one of the more unique players that have #1 farmed. So it was almost natural he would eventually join the Old Snipes project, as he not only #1 farmed but also played and enjoyed old maps. The project had yet to have someone as skilled as Matthew, who not only had the raw aim and tapping ability of top players, but also the ability to sight read AR11 comfortably. It was just about how much motivation he had, and luckily, he had plenty in the tank. In just a couple of weeks, Matthew would snipe over 100 old scores. He mostly used 3-mod, utilizing his accuracy skills to outmod any existing flashlight score in his path. If a map already had a 3-mod score, he would simply outack it in a few tries. For scores that couldn't be sniped with 3-mod due to the multiplier, he'd turn on flashlight and grind it out. Almost overnight, Matthew became one of the project's most prolific and valuable contributors. But even with his effortless dominance was one wall that even Matthew couldn't break. There was one map which towered above all the others. Symphonic Love, the opening theme for a 2009 visual novel, was highly popular in the early years of Osu. The first Symphonic Love map set was ranked on September 7, 2010, created by Digiaria. Along with its popularity were leaderboard farmers competing for the top spot. The leaderboard was filled with either hidden double time scores or hidden flashlight. When the dust cleared, the top spot was held by Pooty Game, one of the highest ranked players at the time. He held the top spot with a hidden hard rock flashlight score with 11/100s dropped. This is where the leaderboard stood until the Old Snipes project. Now with the map in their crosshair, they were ready to take down the score. This was a run-of-the-mill snipe for Matthew, simply 3-mod it with fewer 100s. It shouldn't be that tricky, but maybe it was too easy. The other option would be to outmod it with 4-mod. On this map, this entails playing AR11 and circle size 6.5, which is on the smaller end. Playing flashlight with small and quickly disappearing circles was tricky, along with the map being pretty long to play flashlight with. All of this culminates into being an 8.41 star map, which for old map standards is absolute insanity. So yeah, 4-mod is off the table. There's no way anyone is going to do this. Wait, who is this? And why are they going for such a daring score? This is Molnea. Molnea is an Australian leaderboard farmer who is one of the more active players in the Old Snipes community. He had dozens of snipes, with his better scores being 4-mod AR11. Even then, everyone thought he was insane. There wasn't even 3-mod FC on it yet, but Molnea saw something in Symphonic Love. For most of the map, the circles are close enough that you can see ahead with flashlight. This alone convinced him enough that 4-mod was doable. Yes, no one has done it before, but the only way to discover the limits of what's possible is to venture into the impossible. Molnea started cutting up the map into smaller parts, known as practice diffs, so he can memorize the map in small chunks. He would have to practice every single section, as the map didn't really have any easy parts. Whether it was the small circle-sized bursts or the linear triplets made this a choke point extravaganza, and you often have to blind jump, which is made much more difficult with the small, fast disappearing circles. But as long as Molnea practiced and memorized the map to every tiny detail, it could be doable. 1 month of relentless practice had burned every segment of the map into his mind. While he was FC'd small chunks of the map, it's an entirely different beast to put it all together in one run. After believing he was consistent enough, Molnea started to do runs from zero, attempting to FC the entire map. He would put in dozens of tries, retrying immediately after he missed. He wanted his first submitted score to be a snipe and an FC. It would take another 2 weeks before he was able to consistently make it halfway. The more he played, the further the average run went. A couple days later, he was able to get 70% of the way there, with just a couple of choke points in his path. On June 3rd, 2023, he would start off hot, getting multiple runs on the 90%. It became evident every day this would be the day, and on one run, everything would go right. He would get 90% of the way through, and his score was high enough to secure the snipe. He just had to submit. Now, there's no video footage of what happened next, but when it was done, this is what the score summary said. Despite the score being adequate for a snipe, Molnea would miss on the last 20 combo and retry, putting him back at square one. He was only satisfied if it was an FC, so the grind continued, and a couple of attempts later, this happened. On June 3rd, 2023, Molnea would snipe Pooty Game on Symphonic Love with the 4-mod FC worth 761 PP, his top play by over 140 points. This was the best play of the entire project so far, not only being the highest PP play for the project but also being the first 8-star FC. It would take an absolutely insane score to one-up this. There was potential in some of the 2014 scores, but for now they had to set their sights in finishing out 2013, and a couple of them would not be so easy, mostly due to one player. Takeki3Go was a Japanese player who was one of the best leaderboard farmers in the early years. He would not only have immense flashlight skill for his time, but was also mechanically skilled. One of his best scores was on Pisty Smile, which was filled to the brim with high BPM bursts and cut streams you had to blindly jump to. In 2013, Takeki played this map with hidden hard rock flashlight. He was able to drop only 2 100s for the entire map. This was insanely impressive at the time, with the following years having players struggle to beat the accuracy even without flashlight. But that wasn't even his greatest play. What if he sniped a really good player? In fact, the greatest player to ever touch the game. CookieZ was considered the single untouchable GOAT in all of Osu, but in 2010, he was still trying to get his name out as a top player. One of his favorite songs would be Symphonic Love. He would constantly grind a different map set, the Yeena map set, with hidden double-time flashlight. He would first full combo it in 2010, which put him on many players' radars. The score was so good that many wondered if he was cheating, but no, he was that good. He would go on to become the most dominant player the game had ever seen. While he was creating his legacy, he was continually grinding better accuracy on Symphonic Love. After a couple of more years of grinding the map, he would peak at a 1/100 FC on 2012 Christmas Day. This was widely considered CookieZ's best flashlight play and a testament to his dominance in the early 2010s. A year later in 2013, Takeki would set his sights on Symphonic Love, determined to beat one of CookieZ's most legendary scores. This will be tricky, as not only is sniping CookieZ difficult, but the map is an absolute pain with flashlight. Remember how maps mentioned before were difficult because of stuff like blind streams and jumps? Symphonic Love constantly incorporates those elements. Many blind jumps, many blind streams, and the same unconventional patterns that make old maps a pain to play. All that, plus you had no leeway for any 100s, since CookieZ only dropped one, you had to SS to snipe. This would be very tricky. But Takeki was more than determined to beat him, so he grinded. He grinded this map so hard, his play count went into the hundreds, then the thousands, and even more. On June 6th, 2013, after many grueling tries, this would happen. He dropped 1/100, with his being earlier than Cookies', successfully sniping the score through Score v1. His attempts? Over 8,000. This was the single hardest grinded score in the entire game at the time. This score, along with Pissy Smile and a couple of his other number ones, would last for the next decade, eventually making it to the hands of old snipes. Takeki was an absolute legend in the old snipes community. He was one of the first players to have ever grinded for a score that hard. Being able to snipe his Symphonic Love and Pissy Smile score would be an absolute honor, but that's easier said than done. For Symphonic Love, you would have to either SS or outmod with 4mod, making the blind jumps in streams even trickier to hit. Pissy Smile, on the other hand, couldn't be outmodded, as adding double time would make the burst way too fast to play, so they had to out-ack, which had little wiggle room with only 2 100s dropped. But the old snipes players were willing to put in the time to dethrone a legend, and eventually, someone would snipe one. Unfortunately, it would be someone not so favorable. A player named Witch Hunted would SS Symphonic Love, sniping Takeki after a decade. Though this was technically a snipe, it was too hard to count it as he was widely considered a blatant cheater. Witch Hunted was a player who played the game on and off, but in every single session he played, he would, on his first try, SS maps and get first place ranks on the leaderboard. It's especially baffling considering he's using flashlight, which requires prior preparation and memorization due to the vision limiting factor. For him to achieve first place ranks with flashlight on his first try was already illogical, which only gets worse considering the best flashlight players struggle to hit scores he has done on his first try. He has been confronted and asked to show any proof of legitimacy, such as through a live hand cam. He has consistently refused to show any evidence, as well as taunted players who were unsuccessful in their reports. He then did the common tactic among Osu cheaters of not interacting with the community to deflect attention from their cheated scores. He then went inactive, leaving behind many scores at the top of leaderboards. Yes, old snipes could just not count Witch Hunted's score, but the fact that the leaderboard showed a cheater at the top over Takeki was not going to cut it. If they wanted to snipe his score, they couldn't just beat Takeki, they also had to snipe Witch Hunted in the process. But with Witch Hunted assessing, it left them no choice but to go for a 4-mod FC. This was not going to be easy. They had to bring motivation for people to grind this. But how? Multiple players in the old snipes community would put up bounties to snipe Takeki's scores on Pissy Smile and Symphonic Love. It was $30 for a Pissy Smile snipe, while Symphonic Love was $60 for just sniping Takeki, with an extra $100 if Witch Hunted was also sniped. Now with a monetary incentive, players got right into grinding the scores. Symphonic Love would be the harder snipe, with few players having the capability to play the map 4-mod. Even the best of the best struggle at specific parts, most notably at 400 combo. It presents 4 space circles at an obtuse angle, which then transitions into a burst. This requires you to blind jump at each circle and quickly transition into the burst without being able to see anything. With the jumps each at their own angle, it requires precise timing and movement to hit. This is also near the end of the map, where nerves are at their peak. This is already very tricky with hidden double time flashlight, let alone with 4-mod with even smaller and more invisible circles. But luckily, FOP was up to the challenge. Since their last appearance in Shonen A, they have built up a rap sheet as one of the best 4-mod players in the game. They had a high skill cap on AR-11 with flashlight, and even already had a 3-mod FC on the map. Most importantly, they wanted to snipe Witch Hunted just as much as anyone else. So FOP went right into grinding Symphonic Love 4-mod. On August 9th, 2024, after hundreds of attempts, after many fails on the jumps, and after a 2.5-hour session with over 100 attempts in a sitting, FOP would finally FC Symphonic Love 4-mod, successfully sniping both Takeki and Witch Hunted. It was not just an honor to dethrone such a legendary score, but to also avenge him in the process, but now everyone had to set their sights on the other score. A couple of players got right into Pissy Smile. As said before, this map was too fast to outmod, it had to be out-acked. It wasn't that hard to FC, plenty of players already had 1 misses and S ranks. The issue was, you basically had to SS for the snipe. The 212 BPM cut streams on OD10, as well as the constant bursts, made this a minefield for accuracy drops. 1 mistime on a stream, and your run was over. It doesn't help either that a lot of the bursts occur at the ending, where nerves will be at the highest. Many players struggled on accuracy, not even getting close to the 200s Takeki dropped. Grinding this map was a pain. The many tapping intensive sections were a brutal stamina check, and as you practice them for long periods of time, your fingers get tired and accuracy becomes harder. But there would eventually be one player who was determined to grind out the score. Briona was a leaderboard farmer who had the deadly combo of both flashlight skill and high-level mechanical skill. He was high 4-digit through farming many skill sets, most importantly high accuracy tapping and stamina. That skill would come in handy for Pisty Smile, whose BPM was well within his comfortable threshold. After the bounty was placed, Briona would practice the map and go for a few runs. It became abundantly clear he may just be the one, immediately getting high accuracy runs. He just had to get lucky once. On February 15th, 2025, Briona would snipe Pisty Smile, matching the accuracy and score v1ing Takeki. This was a huge moment, as this score was considered the hardest 2013 snipe. Now it was time to close it out. While these players were grinding, many players were working on the easier scores in bulk. Along with Matthew's Popoff was Sangha still putting in work on the lower diffs, sniping 146 scores in 2013 alone. Both Sangha and Matthew were by far the most active snipers of this year. Along with them were 123 other players who participated in at least one snipe. With Chicken 10 still taking out WubWoofWolf scores, Lizwera out-modding through his sheer flashlight skill, and top players occasionally chipping in a snipe or two unintentionally, it came down to the last few scores. On February 20th, 2025, Basicki would snipe the final 2013 score. Everyone celebrated, marking the end of a multiple-year campaign. But this is far from the end. There was one more year that the sheet stretched to. 2014 would entail not just a list of maps as big as 2013, but even harder ones. Some players questioned if some of these scores would even be possible. The only way to find out will be to give it all they got, and see how far they can go. To fully understand the sniping of 2014 scores, we must go back in time to August 2022. 2014 had scores that required skill sets all across the spectrum to be sniped, but the hardest of the bunch would be the out mods. It may be easy to SS a map with specific mods, but if there are no spinners that can be used to outdo the score, then it requires an extra mod to snipe. And sometimes, this single addition turns a map from doable for many to something that might be impossible. The most obvious case would be for one specific map, a map which had plenty of SSs with specific mods, but the addition of one caused the best of the best to get D ranks. Kona-chan Furuk on Pan is a map made in 2008 with a very unique style. The map is filled with sliders connected to each other with an arbitrary amount of reverse arrows, as well as long ones that are hard to keep up with. The circle size is very small at a minuscule 8. This combined with the low AR made this very challenging, but it's doable enough that there have been multiple FCs with hidden double time flashlight. XCon would get the first SS on it on December 2nd, 2014, which was the score that had to be sniped. Since there are no spinners in the map, it had to be outmodded by adding Hard Rock. In this one addition turns a map from a doable challenge to a Goliath even the best precision players can't fathom doing. Hard Rock edits the map from circle size 8 to 10, which is the smallest possible size. Very few players have ever played Osu this small. This in double time makes the long sliders high velocity and very tricky to keep up with. Hidden and flashlight make the map impossible to see, as the flashlight is dimmed whenever you are holding a slider. This all comes together as the single hardest challenge of 2014. In the players' initial attempts, they thought it wasn't even humanly possible. There was no one who had the precision ability for the map, let alone for such high velocity sliders without being able to see. Every gimmick and old map expert gave it a go, none of them were even close to passing. The leaderboard with 4mod and no fail was filled with D ranks by the best players in the world. So, was the project over? Was 2014 the furthest they could go? Well, there's one more shot in the dark. Yes, top players struggled on the map, but that was only after a few dozen tries. They needed a specialist who was willing to put in the time for a single score. And there was one guy who fit in this category, their last hope to continue the project. This is Water Killer. Water Killer was a player who didn't have high-level tapping or aim ability. The global ranks of top players in old snipes were typically in the hundreds or thousands, meaning at least rank 10,000 minimum. Water Killer was rank 100,000, which is considered beginner intermediate level. So why him for such a daring score? What he had was dedication. No one in the world would think of putting in hundreds of hours on a single map except for him. He had done it before with over 2,000 attempts for the only double time FC underworld and over 4,000 attempts on the only 4-mod SS on Tanuki Chino Boken. Kona-chan would be no different. When he was asked about potentially going for the score, he said it was doable. Everyone sat and watched as day in and day out he would put in more and more attempts into the minute-long map. There were 3 parts of the map, divided through short breaks in between. Water Killer would be able to assess the first and second parts independently. The third part would not be so easy. The third part consisted of long sliders with awkward shapes. This is almost impossible to do blind. Luckily, there is a cheese. Slider ticks are dots that appear along a slider, placed according to the song's BPM and slider velocity. In Osu, combo for sliders is only checked at slider ticks and around the end of a slider. As long as your cursor is on the slider when a tick occurs, you'll keep your combo. Because of this, on long or fast sliders that are difficult to follow, players often focus on hitting the slider ticks rather than tracking the entire slider, allowing them to maintain their combo more easily. This is the strategy Water Killer used on his scores, having predefined paths he followed and memorized for thousands of attempts. But it's easier said than done on Kona-chan. Along with the small awkward shapes are slider ticks that are placed in odd spots, as in, they don't appear in corners or edges or areas that would be easy to follow, they appear a little bit earlier or later than them. That and the small circle size mean you basically have to follow the path frame by frame. And don't forget you're doing this blindly at double time speed. But Water Killer was more than determined to get it right. He would put in over 1,000 retries in just one session, practicing Kona-chan and understanding its intricacies. On May 9th, 2023, he would get his first 4-mod pass. He would slowly improve from it, getting better and better runs as he practiced. He would start assessing the first and second parts, but he would always fall apart on the third. The shapes plus the nerves from comboing would always get to him, but he continued on, putting in more and more attempts throughout the next 2 weeks. It would all culminate on May 22nd, 2023. He was going on a good run, assessing the first part. He then got a 100 on the second part, but he still retained his combo. Now he was on to third part. Could he do it? He would break on the last slider, just being a smidge off the slider tick, ruining the run. But his combo was high enough that he got the first 4-mod score to appear on the leaderboard. Though it wasn't a snipe, it was huge enough to convince people that the snipe was going to happen. And if this snipe could happen, so could the rest of the snipes for 2014. Everyone in the project cheered him on as he continued his grind. Every day, he spent hours on end playing, slider breaking, and retrying on this 1-minute map. Runs often finished with just 1 or 2 slider breaks. He just couldn't get over the hump. The days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Going into July, he was nearing 6,000 attempts and many runs with just 1 slider break. On July 11th, 2023, he would start up runs again. It would be business as per usual, putting in attempts, slider breaking, and retrying. He would eventually get a 207 combo where he broke on one of the back and forth sliders. Though it was a sad choke, it became more known than ever that he was able to do it. 100 more attempts in, on the same session, he would suddenly find himself in the same situation. He had assessed the first and second parts. Could he finally overcome? Water Killer got the first 4-mod full combo on Kona-chan, sniping X-Gon and securing the hardest snipe of the entire project. Everyone was extremely overjoyed. What was supposed to be the score to kill the project was taken down. This motivated players as he proved that all of the snipes were possible given enough time and dedication. With Kona-chan gone, they now had to look for the next hardest snipes to knock out. When looking at the highest star scores to be sniped, there was one familiar name that dominated the area. If you thought 2012 WubWoofWolf was dominant, wait until you see his 2014 form. He had only improved in the past 2 years, gaining even more dominant first place ranks and improving his old ones. But the thing that made 2014 WubWoofWolf special was his effortlessness in obtaining these scores. Not only could he play literally everything, but he could make these scores in very few tries. This allowed him to create scores on a wide range of old maps in bulk. And they weren't easy to snipe either. A vast majority of the maps were lengthy ones with gimmicks that made players prone to accuracy drops at any given moment. WubWoofWolf would be able to get such good accuracy on these maps that no one for over a decade could even come close. Kona-chan was definitely the hardest single score of the project, but that was a month-long grind for one score. Now the true challenge would be whether or not they can close out WubWoofWolf's scores in a reasonable amount of time. And there was one obvious candidate to take them down. Chicken 10 was the one to take down WubWoofWolf in 2012, but now he had to take on the final gauntlet. 137 WubWoofWolf scores, all of which being a different level from before. He was really the only one who could take out his scores. Could he finish it off? He made amazing progress. With the help of a handful of other players, he was able to take out most of his scores. But unfortunately, as time went on, so did his motivation. The same applied for other players in the project. The main reason for this demotivation was related to the development of Osu Laser. For those who don't know, there are 2 versions of Osu, Stable and Laser. They both share one leaderboard. Players spent years grinding leaderboards on Stable, the original version. It is also where the entire project took place. Laser was only announced later on. To make a long story short, Laser has a higher default score multiplier, allowing new scores to easily overtake old ones. The developer also intends to fully replace Stable with Laser one day, which would render years of grinding instantly obsolete. Imagine spending years grinding first place ranks and fighting to keep them only for a new version to randomly pop up and make all that effort vanish with a single update. This is a sentiment players in the old Snipes community held. Since they were all leaderboard farmers, they lost motivation for the game in general. This loss of motivation made progress on old Snipes screech to a halt, leaving 2014 unfinished. Players still chip in a snipe or two, but it's not good enough to complete 2014 in the near future. As of recording, the oldest snipeable number 1 is on Mecha Koi Ranman, which is held by Pooty Game with Hidden Hard Rock Flashlight, set on January 2nd, 2014. Even though they haven't completed 2014, calling the project a failure would be a misunderstanding. It's quite the opposite actually. They accomplished many things down the road. They brought back old legends back into the spotlight, uncovering some of Osu's best forgotten feats. They set scores we didn't even know were possible. And, most importantly, many players of different skills banded together. Flashlight players, 3-Ma top players, and even a psychopath who played one single map for hours at a time. They all banded together for this one single goal, and what they were able to do was nothing short of remarkable. And the project is still going on, and you can still participate in it if you like. They might switch to laser leaderboards in the future, but the transition will be difficult due to their controversial status among leaderboard farmers. The project also extended their list of number 1s to 2015 and 2016, and there in 2016 lay one of the most legendary targets of them all.